All right, welcome back to the channel for another album review. This one's the new Robin McAuley album called Alive, and it's actually been out for the better part of a month at this point. So Robin McAuley, if you're watching this video, you're probably familiar with some of his work. He's been around for a while. He's like 70 years old. Not that that's old. But he's not, kind of a newer generation vocalist. And a lot of you know that he was part of MSG way back when. Now that's what, 30 plus years, if I do the math correctly. So it's been a hot minute. What's interesting, he's been in some other projects, some of which maybe weren't as well known. But this guy's been pretty prolific the last 4 years. When you look at his two solo releases, because he had a solo release in 2021, he's got this one now in 2023, and in between those, or kind of sandwiched around or in between those, were the two Black Swan albums, which I think are his best work. Those Black Swan albums, just phenomenal. And the last one, Generation Mind, really from 2022 was my second favorite album of that year, and it was just by a hair. If it wasn't for Fans of the Dark, that would have been my favorite album. A lot of it has to do with his vocals. This guy is pretty incredible. So with this new album, it's interesting because with Frontiers Records, he did an album just 2 years ago, and that's this one right here, Standing on the Edge. And essentially the lineup as far as the band or the musicians is pretty much the same. If you look at the songwriting credits, it's subtle, but there are some differences. And I think what you'll notice is that with this new album, he's the primary songwriter a little bit more often than he was with the previous album. But otherwise, it's kind of the standard Frontiers mix of songwriting. A lot of you know kind of how that goes. And the fact that, and I did like his previous album, I like this one more. This album is, to me, a lot harder. There's really only one kind of ballad song on here, and it's actually a really outstanding song. It's called Can't Go On. It was released already as a kind of a single or slash video. But I do like this album a little bit more, and you can almost tell if you didn't know who was writing each song and you just listen to the album, you'd probably be able to guess, if you know him pretty well, which ones he was kind of the lead writer on. And I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing necessarily for Frontiers Records. Frontiers has generated quite a few bands as of late and put out a lot of material. So, for example, things like Find Me, and they've been around now for a little bit. They're more of kind of an in the studio, in the laboratory kind of creation. And I love those albums. And again, with Robin McAuley's album from 2021, it was a little bit lighter. I wouldn't say it was super light, but it was definitely lighter compared to the new album. And he had slightly less of a piece of that primary songwriter, at least if you look at the liner notes, who was listed first. So there's really kind of the best of both worlds here. It's kind of the, Frontiers, what you kind of think of when you think of Frontiers music, which for me usually means some pretty good music. And then with Robin McAuley maybe penning a little bit more of, or at least primarily more of the songs on this album, maybe that's why, to me, it's a little bit of a harder edge and a little bit closer to the Black Swan albums, which, again, you don't get any better than that. And this is right along those same lines. So I'm not going to go through necessarily every track, but if you're a fan of Robin McAuley, and his voice is, again, for a 20-year-old, it would be awesome. The fact that he's doing this as a 70-year-old is pretty unbelievable, I would say. Most singers aren't that lucky to have their voice or maintain their voice for that period of time. But there are a lot of standout songs on this. The lead-off track, Alive, which was the first single released, is a great song. It a little bit longer than some of the other tracks, and it's a little bit of a build-up to it as it starts, but pretty soaring chorus, very, very good song. The second song, Dead as a Bone, to me is one of my kind of instant favorites off this album. Got a great chorus. The only thing is I wish they would have done the chorus a little bit more, especially at the end, and kind of broke it down with repeating that a few more times. I think they only do it 3 times throughout the song, which makes me just want to play the song again, so I guess it doesn't really matter. More of a straight-ahead rocker. Again, real nice chorus. The fourth song, Feel Like Hell, was another released song / video. And oh man, I can usually distinguish voices pretty good, but if you just were to listen to that and just the opening verse and just hear the singer, you would think, oh my God, is this the Scorpions? Is this Klaus singing here? He sounds a lot like him on that song. It's pretty wild. But other than really that song, I mean, it's really, you can tell it's Robin McAuley, but for whatever reason on that song, he sounds, I mean, it's almost like the Scorpions, like perfectly. You could probably fill in for the chorus if they ever needed it. But just a really good song. And there's other times when I'm hearing him really belt it out, there's almost a little bit of a, I don't know, kind of a Robin Zander aspect to it. Not that he sounds in tone the same way, but there's a quality to the voice, especially when he's really letting it go. If you think about like Cheap Trick, one-on-one era material, it just reminds me a little bit of that. The fifth song, already mentioned, It Can't Go On, is kind of the ballad on the album. Oh, it's a really powerful song. I like the fact that there's only the one ballad, because at least as of late, I'm kind of just wanting to hear the harder stuff. But boy, this one, middle of the album pretty much, little change of pace, but it's not just a filler. It's a really outstanding song. The seventh song, Fading Away, to me has a totally different vibe. Definitely catchy, but a little bit more maybe soulful, just a different sound to it. To me, I mean, different bands have had this kind of style in the past, but it just kind of made me think of maybe like a Joe Lynn Turner solo album from way back when, not his recent one, which is definitely heavier. But from years ago, I could see it on a Joe Lynn Turner album, something like that. Really punchy, really good song. The eighth song, My Only Son, I really like the verses and the melody in those verses. That's another standout for me. And the 10th song, Stronger Than Before, also same kind of thing. I really like the pre-chorus on that one. It's very melodic, but again, not soft in any way. I mean, these are some hard rocking songs here. You can tell just by looking at that album cover, which I think is pretty cool. Almost looks more like an old school album cover. This guy's got his hands in this, I don't know what kind of electrical field, and there's some kind of substance there. At first I thought it was some kind of like eels or some kind of animal, but it looks like it's some kind of substance where he's drawing energy from. But it really kind of speaks to the energy of the album. It really is alive. If you like Robin McAuley, if you like Black Swan, if you like the harder stuff, but combining that with kind of the frontier style, so it's very melodic. Superb album. I put it up there pretty close to those Black Swan albums. And another album that's going to be up for best of the year, I would think, by the time the end of 2023 rolls around. We don't want to rush that. We got a lot of good stuff still coming out. But let me know what you think. Let me know your review. And until next time.